Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're going to be working on a buttonhole stitch. It looks a bit like a long stitch, but the way you make it is quite different. I didn't really set out to make the most beautiful book. I just wanted something quick and functional and a way to show this stitch. And it definitely came out that way. Sort of a messy book, but it works. It is indeed a book with pages that you can use. Anyways, let's get right into making it. As always, we're going to get started with the planning stage. So in this type of book, you have a spine included, first of all. So the dimensions I'm going for are 4 by 5.5, and so it's 4 by 5.5, a spine which I'm making 1/2 inch wide, and then another 4 by 5.5. Also, I'll be including a window in the middle that I'll be cutting out. So I'm going 1 inch in, 1 inch out, and cutting out that center. So I'll see you after I cut this out. I'm going for a very industrial, simplistic sort of look, so I'm just cutting it straight out of here. You could also go for a soft cover if you'd like. Usually you wouldn't want to cover boards with this because if you cut out a window, it ends up looking sort of gross. It's hard to cover boards if they have a window cut out, is the point. Anyways, I'll see you after that. Okay, I am back with my cut boards. One thing I want to point out is that if you're doing this hardcover, you're going to want to score those lines in the middle. Just if you're doing it hardcover. If you're doing it softcover, scoring isn't really necessary. You can just fold the paper where you'd like to fold it. I scored it there, so I'll be bending in that fold, and then I'll be bending in that fold. So this will be the shape of my book with that little window there. So I'm going to go cut my pages and I'll be right back. Remember, when cutting your pages, it's just this size. So it'll be this, which is 5.5 by 4. And the 4 is doubled because these are sheets that you fold into signatures. So it is the height times the width doubled. You don't have to take into account this because you're just folding pages into signatures. And I'll be back after that. Hey guys, I'm back, and I now have my paper cut and assembled into signatures of 4. When you put it in here, they sort of flatten down or expand to fit the size, which is nice. So I could fit in maybe one more signature, but I'm just going to do it like this, and it should look like this from the side. Yeah, I had to cut down the pages just a little, make it nice and flat. I think that's great fitting. And my next step will be punching holes along this line and along this line. So about 1 inch in on both sides. So I'll see you after that's done and we'll get to sewing. Okay, we're now going to get started with the sewing. So what you want to do is you take your first signature, put it inside, and you go through that first hole right there. You're going to want to leave a little bit of a tail. I'll leave about that much. And what you do is you loop over here. So it looks like a long stitch, but the way you're actually making it is quite different. So you loop around and you go back through that first hole. Make sure you're not going through your own thread. And pulling that there tight. and you're left with this loop going around there. So I'm just going to try to keep it lined up nicely, and I'm going to pull this tight, and what I'm doing here is making a knot with that tail we left. So you leave your knot like that. I'm just going to double knot it. I like to double knot my thread where I start and end it, just like that. And if you want, you could cut off there. I'm gonna do that at the end. And you have your first loop going around the cover. What you do next is you take your second signature. I am going to line that up there, and you go in through first hole in the second signature. So something that makes the buttonhole stitch sort of weird is that you're sewing all of one side and then all of the other side, and they are detached from each other. When most stitches you go there to there, back and forth. This one you're going across and then across. So pulling that through there, what you do next is you loop under the stitch here. So you loop under the stitch you made going back around the cover here. I'm going to pull that nice and tight, and then you go on to your next signature. Oh, dropped a page there. So you grab the next signature, add that on right there, and then you enter the hole in the next signature. Oh, I didn't go right through the middle. Let me quickly make this hole slightly bigger. Put my needle through, pull through, and then I loop around again into my final signature. I'm dropping pages again. Keep dropping pages. So, lining up my final signature there. Again, I loop under the stitching from the last row. It might be better to do this with a curved needle. I'm actually using, I'm actually using a straight needle for once. Maybe in a situation where I should be using a curved needle. You want to make sure it's on the right side so that this loop doesn't interfere with the previous one. You could pull it through like that, and then I enter the last signature here, and I go in there, and then I loop around, making my final loop there. Trying to pull nice and tight. And that's basically how the stitching works. You loop around, go under the last stitch. And once I am on the inside here, I just go and I tie a knot. But before doing that, just going to quickly check on my stitching one last time. Want to pull it tight. And then I'm going to finish off this double knot here. It's a little bit loose there, but that's the trouble with finishing this stitch. it's difficult to get the last one tight. And there, I have my stitching. It's more or less consistent, but at the end you could move around your stitches a little so it looks nice. I cut off there, and then I sew the other side the same way, and I'll see you after that. Okay guys, I'm back after finishing up my sewing, and this is what it looks like. Again, the sewing is more or less consistent, also just the way I scored it. My stitching is getting caught there a little bit. I think it's fine though. When making this book, I didn't set out for it to be the most beautiful book. It's meant to look functional, and I think it accomplishes that. It is indeed a book that you can use. Not the greatest looking book, but it's quick, it's easy, and that's the buttonhole stitch. This was a pretty short video, so I think I'll be putting out my short supplemental videos soon. Thank you guys for watching. Next week I'll be doing some glued stitches. I guess they're not stitches, they're glued bindings. So come back next week to see how to make some books using glue, since these are sewn bindings. But you could also do glued bindings. Anyways, bye guys, thanks for coming.